You're moving into that retirement home next week, Mom. I've already sold your bakery. But what my son didn't know was, I still remember the morning those words came out of his mouth like it was yesterday. I was standing in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd tested 1,000 recipes, where the smell of cinnamon and vanilla had become part of the walls themselves. My son Michael stood in the doorway with his wife Stephanie, both of them wearing expressions I'd never seen before, cold, calculating, like I was a problem to be solved rather than the woman who'd raised him. "What did you say?" I asked, though I'd heard him perfectly well. "The bakery, Mom. Sweet Haven Bakery. I sold it. Well, technically we're finalizing the paperwork this week, but it's done. The buyer's offering $200,000 and will give you $50,000 for your expenses at Meadowbrook Senior Living. It's a beautiful facility. You'll love it there." Stephanie stepped forward, touching my arm with perfectly manicured nails. "It's really for the best, Hazel. You're 72. Running a business at your age? It's too much. And let's be honest, the bakery hasn't been the same since Howard passed." My husband's name in her mouth felt like a violation. Howard had been gone for 4 years, and yes, losing him had nearly broken me. But that bakery? That was our dream. We'd started it 35 years ago with a loan, a prayer, and his mother's sourdough starter. Every brick, every oven, every recipe had our fingerprints on it. "You can't sell the bakery," I said quietly. "It's not yours to sell." Michael laughed. Actually laughed. "Mom, I have power of attorney. Remember? You signed it 2 years ago when Dad got sick. You said you wanted someone to handle things if you couldn't. Well, you're getting older, and Stephanie and I have been talking to some financial advisors. This is the smart move. The money from the sale will cover your care, and we can finally use what's left to expand my consulting business." Where did my sweet boy go? The child who used to stand on a stool beside me, covered in flour, insisting he could knead the dough himself? When did he become this stranger who spoke about me like I was already dead? The power of attorney was for medical decisions, Michael. Emergency situations, not so you could sell my livelihood. He exchanged a look with Stephanie, one of those married couple looks that said they'd discuss this, planned for my resistance. "Actually, Mom, it's a general power of attorney. Our lawyer confirmed we're well within our rights. The sale closes next Friday. Meadowbrook has a room ready for you on Monday. We'll help you pack this weekend." That's when I should have fought harder, I suppose. Should have screamed, called my own lawyer, thrown them out. But I was so shocked, so hurt, that I just stood there as they walked through my house, making lists of what would be sold, what would be donated, what they'd keep. Over the next week, I watched my life disappear piece by piece. The photo albums from the bakery's grand opening, the framed newspaper article when we won Best Bakery in Portland 3 years running, Howard's chef coat with his name embroidered on the pocket. Michael packed it all away while Stephanie supervised, occasionally wrinkling her nose at items she deemed too old or not worth keeping. On Thursday, 3 days before the sale was supposed to close, I was sitting in what used to be my living room, now filled with boxes, when my phone rang. It was Dolores, my head baker for the past 15 years. "Hazel, what's happening? Some man came by this morning saying he's the new owner. He wants to gut the whole place, turn it into a coffee franchise. Corporate-looking guy. He barely glanced at the ovens, didn't even taste the bread." My hands started shaking. "Where's Michael?" "Haven't seen him. But Hazel, the staff. We're all terrified. This new owner, he says he's keeping nobody. Fresh start, he called it." Maria started crying. She's been with us 12 years. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my half-packed house and let myself cry. Not just for the bakery, but for the son I'd lost. The boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard. Who'd called me his best friend. Who'd promised his father, as Howard lay dying, that he'd take care of me. That weekend, they moved me into Meadowbrook. My room was small, sterile, smelling of disinfectant instead of bread. Michael and Stephanie stayed for 20 minutes, long enough to sign some papers and promise they'd visit soon. Stephanie spent most of those minutes on her phone. "Oh," Michael said at the door, "I almost forgot. The sale of your house should close in about 3 weeks. We found a developer who wants to tear it down and build townhouses. You'll get 20% of that sale too. Isn't that generous of us?" Our house. The house where Howard proposed on the front porch, where we brought Michael home from the hospital, where we hosted 35 Thanksgivings. That's very generous, I heard myself say. After they left, I sat on the edge of my narrow bed and stared at the wall. My roommate, a woman named Eunice, wheeled her chair closer. "Family?" she asked gently. I nodded. "Let me guess. Son or daughter thought they knew what's best for you?" "Son." She patted my hand. "They always think they're being kind. But kindness without respect is just control in a pretty package. Don't you think?" Those words stayed with me that night, and the next morning, and the morning after that. I watched through my window as other residents shuffled through their days, and I wondered if this was it. If this was how my story ended, with me sitting in a room that smelled wrong, eating food I didn't make, waiting to die. But then something happened. 3 weeks after I moved into Meadowbrook, I got a call from a man named Robert Chen. He introduced himself as an attorney and asked if he could meet with me. Something about urgent business regarding my late husband's estate. We met in the common room of Meadowbrook. Mr. Chen was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a briefcase that had seen better days. "Mrs. Morrison," he began, "I apologize for not reaching out sooner. Your husband Howard was a client of mine, and I've been overseas for the past 6 months, handling a family emergency. When I returned and learned of your situation, I knew I needed to contact you immediately." "My situation?" "The sale of your bakery, the power of attorney your son has been using." He pulled out a folder. "Mrs. Morrison, did you know that your husband established a trust before he passed?" I shook my head slowly. Howard was a very shrewd man. He knew the bakery was struggling during his illness, that you were both exhausted and frightened. He was worried about making decisions under duress, so he set up a comprehensive estate plan. Mr. Chen opened the folder. He put the bakery, your home, and several investment accounts into an irrevocable trust. You're the primary beneficiary and trustee. The trust cannot be touched by power of attorney. It can only be accessed by you, personally, making decisions of sound mind. The room tilted slightly. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, Mrs. Morrison, that your son didn't have the legal right to sell the bakery. The sale is invalid. The trust protects those assets specifically from this kind of situation." But Michael said his lawyer confirmed everything was legal. Mr. Chen's expression darkened. "I'd be very interested to know who this lawyer is, because any competent attorney would have found the trust during a title search. Either Michael's lawyer was incompetent, or they knew and didn't care, or..." He paused. "Mrs. Morrison, is it possible your son never actually consulted a lawyer?" The pieces started falling into place. The rushed timeline, the way Michael had pushed back whenever I asked to see paperwork, how he'd always said our lawyer but never gave me a name. "What about the buyer?" I asked. Michael said there was a buyer. He came to the bakery. "There was indeed a man who visited your bakery. Based on what you're telling me, I suspect he was an associate of your son's, playing a role. The sale was likely designed to justify moving you into assisted living and taking control of your assets. My son had tried to steal from me, my own child. The boy I'd rocked through nightmares and nursed through chickenpox and cheered for at every baseball game." "But why?" I whispered. "Why would he do this?" Mr. Chen hesitated, then pulled out another document. "This is more difficult to share, Mrs. Morrison, but I believe you deserve the truth. Your son has significant debts. His consulting business hasn't been profitable for 3 years. There are multiple lawsuits from clients claiming he mishandled their investments. He owes over $400,000, and his creditors are closing in." I thought of Stephanie's designer handbags, their new BMW. The European vacation they'd posted about on Facebook last year, the same week I'd eaten soup and crackers for dinner because I was saving money to repair the bakery's roof. "He was desperate," I said. "Desperation doesn't excuse what he did, Mrs. Morrison, but if you're asking me to understand his mindset, yes, he saw you as a solution to his problems. And I suspect his wife encouraged this view." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, I could see Meadowbrook's garden, where elderly residents wandered in supervised loops. "What happens now?" I asked. "That's up to you. We can pursue criminal charges for fraud, forgery if he forged any signatures, and elder abuse. Or we can simply void the sale, restore your access to your assets, and move forward." I should tell you, though, that the trust contains more than just the bakery and house. What do you mean? Mr. Chen smiled. Your husband was full of surprises, Mrs. Morrison. Howard invested wisely over the years. Very wisely. Between the various accounts, the real estate, and some stocks he purchased decades ago that have appreciated significantly, the trust is currently valued at approximately $3.2 million. The room definitely tilted this time. Eunice, who'd been pretending not to listen from her nearby chair, wheeled closer. Did he just say $3 million? She whispered loudly. 3.2, Mr. Chen corrected with a gentle smile. Your husband wanted to make sure you were cared for, Mrs. Morrison. He just didn't anticipate someone would try to circumvent his protections quite so boldly. My hands were shaking again, but this time not from fear or sadness, from rage, pure, clean rage. Michael doesn't know about any of this, does he? I suspect not. The trust was deliberately kept quiet. Howard told me once that he didn't want money to change how your son treated you. He wanted Michael to care for you out of love, not obligation or greed. I think he would be heartbroken to see what's happened. Yes, Howard would have been devastated. Mr. Chen, I said slowly, I don't want to press charges. He looked surprised. Mrs. Morrison, what your son did. I know what he did. But sending him to prison won't teach him anything except to resent me more. I want something else. I met his eyes. I want him to learn what his father tried to teach him. About value, about work, about earning respect instead of taking it. Can you help me with that? Mr. Chen studied me for a long moment, then smiled. I think I can. But Mrs. Morrison, what you're contemplating, it won't be easy. It might even be painful. The best lessons usually are, I said, thinking of all the times I'd burned my hands learning to work with temperamental ovens, all the failed recipes before I perfected them. My husband knew that. It's time my son learned it too. Over the next 2 weeks, Mr. Chen and I worked quietly. We voided the fraudulent bakery sale. We documented everything Michael had done, and then we waited. Michael called me exactly once during that time, 3 days after our meeting with Mr. Chen. Mom, how are you settling in? Fine, Michael. Great. Listen, I need you to sign some paperwork. Just routine stuff for the house sale. I'll email it to you. Of course, dear. I never signed it. Never even opened the email. The call I was waiting for came on a Tuesday morning. Michael's number flashed on my phone, and I let it ring 4 times before answering. Mom. His voice was tight, panicked. Mom, there's been some kind of mistake. The buyer for the bakery is backing out. They're saying the sale wasn't legal. That you have some kind of trust? Oh? I kept my voice mild, neutral. Did you know about this? Did you tell them the sale wasn't authorized? Should I have Michael? Silence. Then, Mom, you don't understand. We need this sale to go through. I have obligations, business investments. If this falls apart, then you'll have to figure something else out. Mom. Now his voice was sharp, the way it used to get when he was a teenager and didn't get what he wanted. You're not thinking clearly. This is exactly why you shouldn't be making these decisions. You're old, you're confused, you don't understand modern finance. Let me handle this. No. Just that. No. One word, but it felt like shoving a boulder off my chest. What do you mean, no? I mean, you don't get to do this, Michael. You don't get to sell my business, my home, my life, and pretend it's for my own good. I know exactly what you did, and I know why you did it. Another silence. Longer this time. I don't know what you think you know. $400,000 in debt, failed investments, lawsuits. Should I continue? I heard him breathing hard on the other end of the line. Who told you that? His voice had gone flat, dangerous. That lawyer? What did he tell you? The truth, Michael. Something you stopped doing quite a while ago. Look, Mom, I can explain. The business just needs time to turn around. And yes, I took some risks, but that's how you build wealth. Dad would have understood that. He took risks with the bakery. Your father took risks with his own money, on his own business. He never stole from his mother to cover his mistakes. I wasn't stealing. Jesus, Mom, I was trying to help you. That bakery is failing. The house needs work you can't afford. I was being responsible. By lying to me? By forging documents? By parking me in a nursing home so you could liquidate my life? It's not a nursing home, it's a retirement community, and you need to be somewhere with proper care. You're 72 years old. And you're 45, but apparently you still need your mother to bail you out. The words hung there between us, sharp and true. I'm your son, he said finally, voice cracking. I'm your family. You're supposed to help me. And there it was. The entitled assumption that my love meant my wallet, that being his mother meant being his solution. You're right, I said softly. I am supposed to help you. But sometimes helping doesn't look the way we expect it to. I hung up before he could respond. The next week was quiet. No calls from Michael, no visits. I stayed at Meadowbrook even though Mr. Chen had restored my access to everything and I could have moved out. But I was thinking, planning. On Thursday, Dolores called. Hazel, thank God. Some official-looking people were at the bakery today saying the sale is canceled. Does this mean you're coming back? Eventually. But Dolores, I need to ask you something. If I wasn't here, if something happened to me, would you want to run the bakery? A pause. Are you feeling okay, Hazel? I'm feeling clearer than I have in months. I'm asking seriously. Would you? I mean, I'd be honored, but I couldn't afford to buy it. And I don't have business experience beyond managing the kitchen. What if you didn't have to buy it? What if you could earn it? Another pause. I'm not sure I understand. Just think about it. I'll be in touch soon. That afternoon, I met with Mr. Chen at a coffee shop near Meadowbrook. I brought a notebook filled with plans I'd been writing late at night when sleep wouldn't come. I want to create something, I told him. Not just save the bakery, but build something bigger. Something that honors what Howard and I created, but helps other people too. He listened as I explained my idea. A culinary training program. Using the bakery as a teaching space for single parents, for people re-entering the workforce after prison, for anyone who needed a second chance and a skill, partial scholarships funded by the trust. Dolores running the day-to-day operations while I oversaw the program development. It's ambitious, Mr. Chen said when I finished. It'll take time, planning, proper legal structure. I have time. And clearly, I have money I didn't know about. Howard left me this gift. I should use it the way he would have wanted. Building something meaningful, not just sitting on it. And your son? I'd thought about this. Thought about it a lot. Michael is invited to participate, if he wants. But not as an owner or investor. If he wants to be part of this, he starts the way everyone else does. At the bottom, learning, working, earning. Mr. Chen smiled. I think Howard would have liked that plan very much. We spent the next month laying groundwork, legal structures, nonprofit status, partnership agreements with culinary schools, outreach to community organizations. I moved out of Meadowbrook and into a small apartment near the bakery. Not my house, which Michael had almost sold. I wasn't ready to go back there yet, to face those memories without Howard. Michael called twice during that time. The first call, I didn't answer. The second, I did. Mom, I need to talk to you. I'm listening. Can we meet? In person? There are things I need to say. We met at a park halfway between my apartment and his house. He looked terrible, thinner with circles under his eyes. His clothes, usually immaculate, were wrinkled. He sat down heavily on the bench beside me, not meeting my eyes. Stephanie left me, he said abruptly, 2 weeks ago. She said she didn't sign up to be married to a failure. I didn't say anything, just waited. She was the one who pushed for the bakery sale, who said you'd be fine at Meadowbrook, that you wouldn't even notice, who found that guy to pretend to be a buyer. He laughed bitterly. I told myself I was doing it for us, for our future. But really, I was just too weak to tell her no. Michael, let me finish. He finally looked at me, and I saw tears on his face. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry for lying, for stealing, for treating you like you didn't matter. I told myself it was practical, that I was being smart, but I knew. Deep down, I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway because I was scared and desperate and I'd made so many mistakes that I couldn't see any other way out. The tears were coming faster now. My son, my baby, crying like he hadn't since he was small. I failed, Mom. Dad's business advice, I ignored it. Your values, I forgot them. And now I've lost everything. My wife, my business, my reputation, and worst of all, I almost lost you. Not to death, but to my own greed. I let him cry, let him sit there with his guilt and his grief, because he needed to feel it, all of it, before we could move forward. Finally, when his tears slowed, I spoke. You're right. You did fail. You hurt me deeply, Michael. There were nights at Meadowbrook when I wondered if I'd failed as a mother, if I'd somehow raised you to think love and loyalty were transactional. He flinched. But you know what else is true? You're sitting here admitting it. You're not making excuses or blaming everyone else. That's something. It doesn't fix what I did. No. But it's a start. I handed him a folder I'd brought. This is a proposal. For you, if you want it. He opened it slowly, reading through the pages I'd printed out. The culinary training program, the mission statement, the application process. I don't understand. I'm building something new with the bakery. A place where people can learn, grow, start over. And if you want, you can be part of it. Not as my son with special privileges. As a student, a worker, someone earning their place. His hands were shaking as he held the papers. You start at minimum wage. You work whatever shifts need filling. You take the classes with everyone else. You learn to bake bread, clean ovens, manage inventory. And maybe, over time, you learn something more important, about what it means to build something with your hands, about earning respect instead of demanding it. Mom, I'm 45 years old. I have an MBA. And right now, that MBA has gotten you $400,000 in debt and a failed marriage. Maybe it's time to learn from a different kind of teacher. He looked at me for a long moment. I could see him wrestling with his pride, his embarrassment, his fear. What if I fail again? What if I can't do it? Then you fail. But you fail while trying, while learning, while doing something real. Isn't that better than what you've been doing? He closed the folder, holding it against his chest like a life preserver. When do I start? Monday morning, 5 a.m. That's when Dolores gets there to start the first batch of sourdough. 5 a.m.? Bread doesn't care about your MBA, Michael. It cares about time, temperature, and patience. He laughed, a wet, broken sound. Dad used to say that. Yes, he did. We sat there as the sun moved lower in the sky, not talking, just being, my son and I, not fixed, not healed, but maybe beginning the slow work of rebuilding what he'd broken. That was 8 months ago. Michael did show up Monday at 5 a.m. Dolores told me later that he looked completely lost standing in front of the industrial mixers, like he'd landed on an alien planet. She'd handed him an apron and pointed him toward a mop. Floor first, she'd said, then we'll talk about dough. He'd mopped. And the next day, he'd mopped again. For 2 weeks, his job was cleaning, organizing, learning the unglamorous foundation of what we did. I watched sometimes from my office, saw him scrubbing flour from corners, hauling 50-pound bags of supplies, taking direction from staff members young enough to be his kids. His pride took a beating those first weeks. He called me once, late at night, his voice raw. "Do you know what it's like?" he asked. "Having people I used to do business with come into the bakery and see me wiping down tables?" Today, Ron Martinez came in. I used to manage his portfolio. He asked if I was volunteering here as some kind of tax write-off. "What did you say?" I told him I was learning the family business. "That's good, Michael." "Is it?" "Because it feels humiliating." Humility and humiliation aren't the same thing. One tears you down, the other builds you up from a more honest foundation. He'd been quiet for a moment. "Did Dad ever feel like this? When you two were starting out?" I thought about those early years. Howard coming home covered in flour, exhausted, sometimes questioning whether we'd made a terrible mistake. "Every day," I told Michael. But he kept showing up. And eventually, the work stopped feeling like humiliation and started feeling like pride. When? I can't answer that for you. Everyone's timeline is different. But Michael, you're showing up. That matters. After 2 months, Dolores started teaching him basic recipes. Simple things first, how to measure accurately, the chemistry of leavening, why timing mattered. He made mistakes, burned batches, once mixed up salt and sugar and created a tray of inedible croissants that made the whole staff laugh. The MBA didn't cover bread ratios? Dolores teased him. To his credit, he laughed too. Turns out I wasted a lot of money on that degree. By month 4, something shifted. I'd see him arrive early, stay late, ask questions that showed he was actually thinking, not just following instructions. He started suggesting small efficiencies, ways to streamline our prep work. Not arrogantly like he used to, but tentatively, respectfully, deferring to Dolores's judgment. "Your boy's got a good head for systems," she told me one afternoon, once he stopped trying to reinvent everything and started actually listening. The training program officially launched in month 5. We started with 6 students, a single mother named Carmen, who'd been working 3 jobs, a man named James, fresh out of a rehab program, a young woman, Keisha, who'd aged out of foster care with nowhere to go, and 3 others, each with their own story, their own reasons for needing a second chance. Michael wasn't their teacher, he was their classmate. I watched them all learn together, watched Michael, who'd once had a secretary in a corner office, stand shoulder to shoulder with Carmen as she taught him her grandmother's technique for braiding challah. Watched him listen, really listen, as James talked about the discipline he'd learned in recovery and how it applied to sourdough starters. "You know what's weird?" Michael said to me one evening. We'd started having dinner together once a week, slowly rebuilding what he'd broken. I used to think I was so smart. I had all these theories about wealth building and investment strategies, but Carmen knows more about real economics than I ever did. She can tell you exactly how to stretch $20 into 3 days of meals. That's genius I never learned in business school. Your father used to say the same thing, that the people who understood money best were the ones who'd had to make it stretch. Michael nodded slowly. I wish I'd listened to him more. To you both. By month 7, the bakery was thriving. Our training program had a waiting list. Local restaurants were hiring our graduates. The Portland Press did a feature story on us. "Local bakery rises again," the headline read, with a photo of our first graduating class holding their certificates. Michael was in that photo, standing in the back row, flour on his apron, his arm around Carmen's shoulder. He'd lost weight, gained muscle from the physical work. His face looked different too. Calmer. More grounded. Like he'd finally stopped running from something and learned to stand still. The reporter asked him what the program meant to him. "It gave me my life back," he said simply. "Not my old life. Something better. Something I actually earned." Last month, we had a small ceremony at the bakery. Dolores officially became co-owner, with a path to full ownership if she wanted it after 5 years. The training program became a registered nonprofit with its own board of directors. And we announced a new scholarship fund, named after Howard, for students who wanted to continue their culinary education beyond our program. Michael asked if he could say something at the ceremony. I nodded, not sure what to expect. He stood up in front of everyone's staff, students, community partners, the people who'd believed in this vision. "A year ago," he began, "I was standing in my mother's kitchen, telling her I'd sold her bakery. I thought I was being practical, smart. I thought I knew what was best." His voice caught slightly. "I was wrong about everything. My mother taught me something this past year that I should have learned a long time ago. That real wealth isn't money in a bank account, it's this." He gestured around the room. Community, purpose, the ability to create something that feeds people, not just their bodies but their hope. He looked at me. "Mom, I can't give you back the year I stole from you. I can't undo the hurt I caused. But I can promise you this. Everything I build from here on out, I'll build the right way. The way you and Dad taught me. With my hands, my heart, and respect for the people around me." I couldn't speak, could only nod as tears rolled down my face. After the ceremony, as people mingled and ate the pastries our students had made, Eunice from Meadowbrook wheeled up to me. She'd become a friend during my brief stay there, and I'd invited her tonight. "That young man of yours," she said, "he's learned something valuable." "What's that?" "That being strong doesn't mean never falling down. It means learning how to get back up." She was right. Michael had fallen as far as anyone could fall, lost his business, his wife, his self-respect, but he'd gotten up. Slowly, painfully, with help, but he'd done it. Today, Michael manages our supplier relationships and helps coordinate the training schedule. He makes a modest salary, lives in a small apartment, drives an old car he bought used. By the standards of his old life, he's a failure. But I see him smile now in a way he never did before. Real smiles, not the tight professional ones he used to wear like armor. He comes to Sunday dinner at my apartment. I still haven't moved back to the house. Might never, and we cook together. He tells me about his students, about recipes he's developing, about a woman named Lisa he's started dating, who teaches kindergarten and doesn't care that he's not wealthy. She said she likes that I work with my hands, he told me last week, that it shows character. She's right. Dad would have liked her. Yes, he would have. Sometimes I think about that morning when Michael stood in my kitchen and told me he'd sold my bakery, how I felt my world ending, how I couldn't imagine surviving that betrayal. But here's what I know now. The secret my husband left me wasn't just money. It was permission to teach our son what we'd always tried to teach him. That value comes from work, not entitlement. That love means helping people become their best selves, even when that's hard. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone fall so they can learn to stand on their own. Michael had to lose everything to find out what really mattered. And I had to risk losing him to give him that chance. Was it painful? God, yes. There were nights I almost called, almost just wrote him a check to fix his problems, almost took the easy path because watching your child struggle is agony, even when they deserve it. But I didn't. Because Howard had given me the resources to do something harder than rescue Michael. He'd given me the resources to teach him. Last week, Michael brought me a loaf of sourdough he'd made, not as part of his job, just because. I used Dad's technique, he said. The one you told me about. Let it rest longer than you think you need to. Trust the process. I tore off a piece. It was perfect. Crispy crust, tender inside, that complex flavor that only comes from patience. Your father would be so proud, I said. Michael smiled. I hope so, because Mom, I'm finally proud of me too. That's the real secret, I suppose. Not the money my husband left, not the bakery I saved, but this, watching my son become the man his father hoped he'd be, watching him learn that the best things in life can't be bought or stolen, they have to be earned, needed, and given time to rise. Just like bread, just like forgiveness, just like love.